do da da do da da do.
Hello everyone, I am having a chat with Conrad, our CEO. I realised recently that a lot of you have been asking questions about social media and how to write good social media posts. So I thought it might be a good idea if me and Conrad just have a chat about it and we just record it for you guys to listen to.
Yeah, thanks for getting me in the hot seat, Els.
What you deserved. I thought it was your time to be grilled since you've been grilling everyone else.
The tables have turned. I'm nervous now.
And tables on Conrad. So yeah, I guess there's kind of two sides to it that we're going to cover, and one we were saying is more how to write great social copy for brands across all kinds of different platforms, but then the other side is how to write for yourself and how to approach your own kind of LinkedIn strategy for copy, and what types of posts, etc.
Yeah, and I think also on that note, sometimes you might be writing copy for the social profile of a brand, but sometimes it might also be for a specific thought leader, within that brand. If they're going for kind of a thought leadership strategy, like we are, for example, most of our efforts go into my LinkedIn profile and my Twitter profile, because often, especially for smaller companies, often that's actually a better strategy to really build the authority of an individual rather than the brand, because in the end of the day, it's social media. So, it's social, right? So people are more likely to respond and react and engage with a person, a face, rather than a logo that they don't know.
Yeah. So exactly. So take some notes, and we're going to be throwing like quite a lot of stuff your way. So first of all, I was thinking recently, I just think there's quite a common perception amongst copywriters and brands as well that just writing social posts is just easy, and I think it can become kind of an afterthought. When actually it's really, really important to get it right, because everyone's on social and everyone's listening as well these days. But do you agree, Con? Do you think that people can just bash it out and it's going to be well received?
I think there's a common perception, and yeah, like you said, it's often an afterthought. I do understand that the difference between, let's say, writing copy for a landing page that is needed to convert and, actually sell a product, and writing copy for social, there's a difference there, right? Social needs to be constant, needs to be consistent. So, and, on some platforms like Twitter, you need to get quite a lot of content out all the time. So naturally, a brand can't spend as much money, let's say, per word on social copy as they would on, a core page on their website, or a really important landing page, or a bottom funnel email. However, as you know, it is potentially the face of the company, right? It is the kind of the touch point that most of their followers, customers, potential prospects will see most of the time. So it's hugely important. And I think also with this, there's so much saturation out there, more and more saturation, right? Like the more and more people are online, more and more people are on social, in every platform, and there's so much noise that it's actually really important to focus on, getting the copy right and doing the right things in social in order to cut through that noise.
Yeah, and I guess that a big point out of that is that it should be part of a larger strategy. Whether or not that's like, if you're writing copy for a brand that doesn't have a strategy, I guess content strategy, right? It should be part of the content strategy. And if they don't have one, then that's going to kind of be up to you to decide what kinds of themes you're going to work with and how you approach it, which is quite a big topic and shouldn't be taken lightly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's it. Without strategy, then it will be an afterthought, right? It'll be a case of you as a copywriter, whether you're in-house or out of house, or the marketing manager within the company, just thinking, oh, what should I write about today? you know, and just grabbing things out of their hat essentially and just post.
Yeah.
Obviously, there needs to be an element of timeliness with social, because again, it's, you know, you can plan ahead, but you should, within that strategy, you should plan a structure that allows you to respond and react to things that are going on within the company and, you know, in the outside world, because, you know, social, again, it can't be too pre-orchestrated. You know, I think you do need to respond to what's going on, curate content that's sort of viral at the time, and comment on things that are happening in the news in your industry. But if you have a strategy and you've kind of planned, let's say on a Wednesday we you know, do a viral post, or a Thursday we comment on something that's happening in the industry, then at least you've got that structure there, and you know what you should be doing and why, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, this kind of leads on to the next thing I was going to say, is that what's the biggest mistake brands make with social posts? I think that I think one of the biggest ones is this kind of self-promotional posts that if you were carrying out a proper content strategy that's based around providing value, it always comes down to giving value, then yeah, you can slip into this thing of, you know, we've got a new product out, or this is our someone got a promotion to, you know, vice president or something. It's like those kinds of things that brands really mess up with, because it's not interesting at all.
It's, you know what, it's so common. I think big brands, there's a lot of big brands that do it and still do well with their social. Let's say, like, you know, fashion brands that they've got a lot of followers, right? Because they're big and they're established, they're well known, and you know, it's all kind of product ranges for them, and it's constant product ranges. I think, well, they are drumming up business from that, and you know, their followers, their customers do want to see the new releases, what's coming out in spring season, for example. There's a missed opportunity. They can do so much more by, again, focusing on, I think, the main philosophy of content marketing, which is kind of value, you know, and or entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think if you're just self-promoting, then you are missing the main trick, the main point of social media, which is to be social, right?
Yeah.
Social media platforms were created for users to be social, interact, engage with each other, chat about things. So if you're just saying me, look at this product, look at that product, look at this new sale, here's a discount, you know, you're missing a trick. You're missing that real element of being kind of human and humanizing the brand and being social, which, as I said, is why social media was created.
Yeah, totally. And I think, and then that kind of leads on to the other thing I was thinking, that it's a big mistake that brands make, is to not interact. So they'll put out a video, they'll put out you know, commentary on the industry, or they'll give something out, and then they get comments and then they don't respond. They'll get comments and questions, and I think that it's all about continuing that conversation and making sure it's constantly interactive.
Yeah, I think, like, we've seen before, as you know, situations like that where there might have even been some kind of negativity, right? From customers that sometimes will comment and say, hey, I haven't received my product or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, posting on their social media profiles on their walls, and then the brand's not responding. And that's awful from a PR perspective, as you know.
Yeah, it is. It's really bad. And I think it's more, I think a lot of, or they respond in a negative way back. I think that's another thing. It's what it is about tone of voice and having those strict brand guidelines in place, and how you actually respond in a positive way, even when you're getting criticism, is really important.
Yeah, I think, and there's an opportunity. Well, there's a huge, not an opportunity, a risk there of it going viral for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah.
You know, you often see brands interact with people on social, on Twitter, for example, and it gets reshared. You know, either positively, if they kind of you know, respond positively to something or humorously, and it can go viral, and it can be just really good sort of PR for that brand, or the opposite. So that's why it's a delicate, right? It's delicate. Things amplify social media so easily.
I really rate those people who take those risks though as well, because, and then they go viral. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I think like there were quite a few good ones over like the whole COVID, like when it first hit, there were some people who were kind of going viral for just having such good responses on social.
Yeah, I think that yeah, it's good that you brought up COVID, because obviously the world has changed just a tad over the last few months. And, you know, we've been doing a lot of crisis communications work, helping our clients, helping other prospects understand what they should be doing, how they should adjust and adapt their marketing messaging during these sensitive times. And yeah, we saw just this complete kind of polar opposite in terms of brands that just ignored it, just said, no, we're going to continue doing what we're doing, which was often, self-promote, which, as we said, we believe is not the right thing to be doing anyway in a normal situation, and even less so in COVID times when people are losing their jobs, they can't leave the house, so they couldn't buy, let's say, you know, your new summer collection of trainers and you know, outerwear or something. So there were definitely negative reactions to brands that weren't doing it the right way.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not really the kind of thing you can just go, well, I've planned this content and we are going to put it out no matter what happens. It needs it needed rejigging massively. And some brands really nailed it and some, didn't.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one thing I want to mention is this thing we call the golden ratio, which is a concept which sort of came about 7 years ago. And you know, the thing with social is that the interesting thing about social is that I think strategies can change so quickly. I still think this is, oh sorry, it's police sirens, we'll let them go by.
Oh, hopefully.
So yeah, it's essentially, the golden ratio is that basically 10%, arguably 10% of your content should be promotional, 30% should be branded content coming from the brand, which can be value driven and or entertaining, and 60% curated content. So again, one thing that you might miss as a brand or a copywriter writing for a brand or a social media manager or a marketing manager is that you can curate content, and it kind of makes your job easier, right? If you're thinking, oh, I need to write new stuff off the top of my head every day, and if it's Twitter, we got to write 5 posts a day, like where does it come from? You know, social is there to comment, as we said, on other things that are going on. So you can curate content, and if you have a strategy, if you have like content buckets, which are like overarching themes that you would talk about. For example, for our company, those buckets are brand strategy, content strategy, copywriting, and marketing in general. Then everything we curate will fit into one of those buckets. You know, so on Twitter, we might be retweeting or resharing a blog post written by a social media influencer like Neil Schaffer, and we can comment on it. And you know, it's valuable to our audience, it makes sense, and it shows them that we're not just going me, or look at my stuff. Yeah. We're sharing other stuff, we're leading them to other thought leaders and to other good content, because it presents you as again being a friendlier, more real, more human kind of brand that's offering this channel and this thread of value and or entertainment.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you're trying, for us, if we're trying to talk to a client and trying to explain the importance of content strategy, and there can often be some resistance because it's like a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
They want to pump a lot into ads and they've got other kind of agendas. But then when COVID hit, and then suddenly everyone's kind of getting on board with value and seeing that it really is important, and then you can see something actually how well they do from it, and just by approaching it in that strategic way with content buckets and you know, all the rest of it, it's just kind of forced people's hands, I guess, into doing it, and then they've seen really good results from it. So
Exactly, and it's kind of what they should have been doing anyway, right?
Yeah.
I don't think maybe as extremely, and if you sort of, you know, have seen any of our crisis comms content, we talk about the fact that people generally in any given market, this is a kind of an average across the board, only 3% of your prospects are in buying mode, right? Only 3% of people are like, you know, ready with their credit cards out ready to buy something, which means 97% of people aren't in buying mode. And you can't sell to people who aren't in buying mode, right? It's like trying to propose to someone on a first date, for example, or on Tinder after they've swiped right or left or whatever it is. So, you know, and that's why content marketing exists. That's why like value-driven marketing exists.
Exactly.
And the thing with COVID is that even fewer people are in buying mode because people have lost their jobs, people are uncertain, people are kind of panicking, companies aren't buying, individuals aren't buying. So it makes even less sense to try and force discounts down their throat or trying to sell to them.
Yeah.
It makes even more sense to follow this value-driven approach. And we've seen some like really good kind of companies on social, sort of change their strategy during COVID. Like Innocent are a really good example where if you look back through their Instagram feed, you can see this very clear cut switch from pre-COVID to during COVID, which is, you know, you'll see like them showing lots of their products, new drinks, you know, product focus posts, and then suddenly they switch to value and entertainment. So, you know, these cool things like 21 things you should do this weekend, quite funny, 21 things to do at home over Easter.
Yeah.
And it was both funny and valuable. And again, our argument is that really they should have been doing more of that, you know, prior to this whole shit situation that we've got ourselves into.
Exactly. So should we let's talk about different platforms and how copy needs to differ from platform to platform, because Conrad and I have different kind of areas that we normally deal with. Conrad does a lot more B2B than he's kind of LinkedIn and Twitter expert, and I would deal kind of more with Instagram. So do you want to talk about LinkedIn and Twitter, and then I'll talk about Instagram?
Yeah, let's talk about LinkedIn first of all. I think that one thing, probably actually across all of these platforms, that we haven't mentioned yet is this idea of real talk, which we've been throwing out quite a lot recently. And another thing we've been talking about is unpolishing your copy. And I'd say I think this is truer for social copy than it is for other copy, landing pages, website copy, etc. In general, I think unpolishing is important. What you don't want your copy in general to look like is copy in a way. You don't want ad copy to look like ad copy. You know, you don't want to follow this formula of what do I think ad copy should sound like, you know, salesy, etc. And that's what makes it much more real and human. And generally that's like a good rule to apply across the board for copy, but even more so for social, because again, it's a platform for people being humans, being real and interacting and being social. So I'd say even more so. And then again, even one step further when you're writing for an individual, let's say you're building the authority of a CEO, a thought leader within the brand, the company that you're writing for. For us, for example, it's me. You know, when we're writing copy for LinkedIn, it needs to be very real and human. And if we're telling stories, they should kind of be personal stories, or at least make them seem like personal stories. It shouldn't seem too contrived. Like you've like carefully crafted this perfect, you know, killer story, which you might do in a blog post. It needs to seem a bit more real.
Yeah, absolutely. So less carefully crafting, more like little lead-ins, like I was thinking, or you know, something that just comes more naturally, like you've just thought of it on the spot and just wanted to share it, because it's going to help people, or it's valuable.
Exactly, yeah. You want it to come across, this is again when you're writing, I think, for an individual, as though that individual has just gone and done something and had a thought there on the spot, right? They've been to an event, they watched someone, and it triggered some kind of thought process where they said, you know what, I want to now share this spontaneously on LinkedIn, even though secretly it might not be spontaneous. You know, it might have been planned, part of a strategy. You might have thought of it a couple of weeks before, at the beginning of the month. That's the approach you want to give, because it just seems more real, and people connect with people, and that real talk, that kind of humanity in it will help people connect to that story.
But just, also it does have to be written well. You can't just throw all grammar to the wind and just, you know, it still has to be written in a good way. Like, but I'm sure if you're a copywriter and you do write well anyway, you don't just suddenly resort to, you know, bad writing. If you're just messaging a friend, it will still be fairly well put together.
That's it. It's a fine balance, isn't it? It's a fine balance between using the copy skills that we're teaching you. You know, all of that. You know, the big shop, the power of you, etc. But then unpolishing slightly, like looking back through it. Does this seem too much like an ad? You know, how would you put that out on your own Facebook wall, for example? Can you chuck things in there like an emoji, a couple of exclamation marks rather than none? We usually don't really use any or many in copy, just to again make it seem like you've just written that to a friend, like over a coffee and a bagel, for example.
Yeah, that sounds. It might be a good time to talk about emojis, actually. Oh no, should I
let's keep talking about the platforms? Yeah.
Sorry, we only touched on LinkedIn, didn't we?
So LinkedIn, I think that was kind of unpolished. That's kind of across the board. LinkedIn, look, I think video works amazingly. Not that many people are using video well. We have just started it, and there are videos going out literally next week. So kind of tune into those.
Yeah,
really good strategy. And you might think, well, what have I got to do with video as a copywriter? Copywriters write scripts for videos, and you also need to write the copy that accompanies the video, right? You need, in LinkedIn, you have, I'm not sure, about 50 characters, and then quite a lot more, but you've got 50 characters before your follower needs to click the button to expand it, to expand the post in order to read it. So if you think about that, it's almost like a headline. So the first couple of lines need to build curiosity, build intrigue, kind of grab their attention, do a similar job that a blog post title needs to do in order to get a click through, or to get the post read.
Yeah.
And then you've got more time to kind of play with the copy. And one thing I would say is that in the past, we used to maybe write too much. Well, perhaps it was fitting for the times. We used to write a lot of teasers, like short teasers to blog posts, for example. But I think these days people are more used to, they prefer to kind of stay within the platform, or they're used to that. They're not necessarily ready to click through elsewhere. And the LinkedIn algorithm actually doesn't want you to click out of LinkedIn. So what we try to encourage is you to write posts, even if it's a teaser for a blog post or a piece of content elsewhere, to make sure that that LinkedIn post works as a standalone post. You know, it offers value. So maybe you can summarize the article and give some value. So if they just go away reading that one post, or reading that post and watching the video, they've got something, you know, they've got some value. And then you can drop a link in the comments to an external article where they can maybe delve into more detail.
Yeah.
And Twitter, I think similarly, Twitter, even though you've got 280 characters, so you might think, oh, you only have enough time to write a little teaser to something else. Similarly, you still want people to get something from that post. And I think that's why they expanded it from 140 characters to 280, to allow, you know, brands and people, individuals, thought leaders to, you know, have a bit more to play with, to offer a bit more value, a bit more meat. And you can see, for example, like some thought leaders and social media experts writing list posts but within 280 characters, you know, 1 to 10, like 10 things that you can do today to improve your marketing, for example, and like 10, you can write a little list post, and then again, you can link to a much longer, more detailed article.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Do you want to talk about Instagram and maybe like B2C? I guess I was talking more about B2B copy, but what about B2C?
For B2C, I think, or Instagram, I mean, the same principles generally apply, I think, but I think with Instagram, you can get away. It's going to be product focused, a lot of it. So everything is so visually led, as we know. So you're going to be getting video scripts for product promotion. So it's going to be like short little videos. So it can afford to be a lot more copy based, because a lot of them are just kind of subtitles. Like a lot of it aren't even people talking. It's someone doing something to their hair, and then you've got this kind of copy, short, sharp, snappy copy underneath. It is more salesy. So it is, I mean, you can afford to be more copy-ish, like polished copy with Instagram. Yeah. And a lot of the time your copy has such a supporting role. It's just going to be, it's taking a back seat, because it is all about the visuals with Instagram. So you just need to make sure that people aren't going to read this long-winded story necessarily on Instagram. So make sure that all that important information is right up top of that post. And I mean, storytelling definitely does have its place in the post, but you, as I say, just make sure that it's extra gripping, because people are just scrolling through.
Yeah, I think that, well, storytelling could be a good one. Is that a good segue to?
Yeah, it's actually what we're going to talk about next, about storytelling in social. Yeah, did you want to say something about?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I think that how do we do storytelling? Because we've talked, we've taught our community. There's a lot about storytelling in the course, and we use storytelling in blog posts. We use it in landing pages as well, and obviously the reason is because our brains are hardwired to kind of be engaged by stories. We've been listening to stories since we were little babies, and they're powerful things. However, in social, you want to use stories, but I'd say again, like, you want to make them seem real. Back to this idea of real talk. I think in most cases, you want them to seem like real stories, be real stories, or seem like real stories, and less of the kind of really contrived, carefully crafted stories. What do you think, Els?
Totally, I really agree. Like, and I think we touched on it earlier a little bit. It has to seem natural. It's like in a blog post, you can get away with this like big analogy, and I love them. I love like that leading, because I think that it's a really good, powerful way in a blog post. But people kind of expect that from a well-written blog post. Mm-hmm. In social, that kind of contrived thing doesn't work as well. If you're it needs to just kind of sound like it's come off the bat. And I was just thinking as you were talking, Instagram, it does as well. Like, even if you've got like a script of someone who's just tried a new face cream and they're talking about it, it still needs to seem really natural. Otherwise it's going to seem really cringe, like someone like, wow, I can't believe this. It has to still seem really
stock photo, like the
yeah. So I think that's the way things are going. I think before I think that's kind of evolving now though, and I think that just natural, human, how you tell your friends something has happened, oh wow, I was walking down the road earlier and this happened, I really couldn't believe it. It was like, it's that kind of natural real talk, as Conrad's saying, that really needs to come across. So just deviate. This is something I actually find really hard. It really doesn't come naturally. I have to switch off a different part of my brain, and I've had to actually practice quite a lot at writing more naturally for social posts, because I'm so used to writing copy, but it can be done. I'm getting there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Sometimes even, just expect that it might seem a bit tricky first of all, but you will get the hang of it.
I think that one powerful marketing trick is to admit weakness, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned that within the course. You know, I always mention Avis, the Avis campaign, when trying to illustrate that point. You know, we're number 2 in rent-a-cars, so we try harder. That was something they literally had at the forefront of their advertising for like 60 years. Very brave, but it's very powerful. And the reason it's powerful is because, you know, if you admit weakness, you're instantly building trust. Because, you know, who you think of, like 2 different people that you meet, let's say salespeople, and one of them is saying, I'm the best at this, you know, we're the number 1, we're the best. You're immediately going to, you know, think that they're not the number, they're covering something up, right? There must be something there, right? But someone who admits weakness and then kind of turns it into strength, that builds that trust, because, you know, you're instantly gonna trust someone that does that. And so brands can take a leaf out of that book, and copywriters can too. And, you know, some of the best performing posts that I've seen on LinkedIn, from ourselves and from some of the people we follow, like Mark Gaisford, are ones where they're really quite personal. Even if it's a brand, or talking about the personal story of someone within the brand, or if it's a thought leader talking about something where they're, you know, admitting, they're kind of showing their humanity, right? They're well, Nitsan, for example, when she talks about how she has anxiety and how she sort of overcome it, and face that challenge, or face their fears, and they do really well because they're so personal, they're so human, they build so much trust, rather than the kind of traditional car salesman, like, this is number 1, and, you know, we're the best at everything. And again, look, we're talking here, I suppose, about sort of social strategy as well as copywriting techniques. So as a copywriter, you need to establish with the brand you're working with what they want, right? And it might be a case of you trying to argue at the beginning, not argue, but sort of put your argument forward, that, you know, you feel that there should be this golden ratio, that it shouldn't be all promotional, and show examples of what's working with other brands in their industry that are taking this kind of more real approach and personal stories. But remember that, I suppose, the client's always right to a certain extent. So push it a little bit. If they say, no, this is what we want you just to write product descriptions, then you're going to have to just do that, right? Just try and do it in this real human, social media type of way.
And I think the admitting weakness thing is really, really powerful, but I do think it takes experience. So if you're pushing a brand, or like to do something like that, and then it backfires, like you have to have real confidence in what you're doing with that. So I think that's something to aspire to, maybe.
Definitely, and it would need to be cleared by the brand first. Don't just start writing something.
We're number 2.
Yeah, we're the worst.
Cool. I just quickly talk about video and the role between video and copy. I mean, I've talked about it quite a bit with Instagram. Have we kind of covered that, do you think? You know, is video more effective than copy on social, and does copy have a place?
I think, like I said, I think video is probably the most engaging form of content, right? Right now. And copy does have a place, because you'll be writing video scripts. And you'll be writing the copy that accompanies it, that's the teaser for that video. And, you know, again, on LinkedIn, for example, the content that we're going to be putting out for us, for my profile, the header is hugely important, and the thumbnail, right? So a video needs to be clicked, unless it's just playing automatically. It needs to be clicked. It needs to have a thumbnail which is clickable. Again, so that thumbnail does the job, as I said before, as like a blog post title. You need a title at the top that does all the things that we've taught you in terms of, you know, the curiosity gap, building intrigue, building anticipation, making it essentially clickbait. That's what it is, right? Clickbait gets a bad rep, you know, there's negative connotations, but essentially that's what we're doing. It's clickbait. We want someone to click that video. Otherwise, they'll miss all the video content, and in the end of the day, video content is much more expensive to produce than written content. So most brands, most companies, and most thought leaders will have a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
You know, written, copy, visual, and there's always going to be words involved in all of them, because you can't really get a message across without words.
So maybe, I mean, yeah, like on a lot of the time it is going to take it's a supporting role. You can look at your copy as the supporting role to video.
But an important supporting role.
Really important, yeah. It's not, and still, yeah, it's never an afterthought. It's always strategic, always, you know, as much thought going into a 5-word teaser than, you know, a longer form.
Exactly. Should we just quickly talk about a few resources that would be good? So Social Media Examiner is a blog. Again, it gets heavily into the strategic side of social and tactical things that, you know, are way beyond copywriting. There'll definitely be ones within their, you know, library of content focused on copy. You know, how to write for Twitter, how to write for LinkedIn. It's good to, as copywriters, I've said this many times, the more that you can expand your breadth of knowledge around marketing in general and things like social media marketing, the more well-rounded a copywriter you'll be. And, you know, eventually you can start offering extra value such as strategy, which is, to be honest, where you can make a lot more money. And if you can offer both together, you become you know, it will put you in it will differentiate you from other copywriters. So if you can start to read things like Social Media Examiner, Post Planner is another one, the Buffer blog, Neil Schaffer as well. We write some guest posts for Neil Schaffer.
Yeah, I'll drop the links under the in the comments section on the video, so you guys can easily find them. Yeah,
and definitely watch out for our videos that are going to be going up soon on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn. If you add me, if you want to connect with me, just make sure you say that you're from the academy, because I don't connect with everyone, because there's lots of marketers and salespeople trying to sell stuff.
Those marketers.
And that's just a final note there. If you're DMing, if you're writing, you know, trying to do outreach via LinkedIn, again, just don't try and sell. Don't send a private message to someone that you don't know and say, oh, I'm offering copywriting services, would you like some? You know, people get bombarded with these messages all the time. Just connect. Think of social as being an extension of real life networking, right? It's real. You connect. If you met someone in the street, you wouldn't just hand them your business card. You'd build rapport. You'd talk to them first. You'd get to know them. You'd ask them questions. We had the video before from me interviewing. Who was I interviewing?
Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan. Exactly. I was interviewing Nathan about etiquette on LinkedIn, and you know what he was talking about was essentially asking what you can do for them. You know, who can you introduce them to? So give them that value first, and he always makes 5 introductions. So it's about being selfless, offering value, being real, being human, building rapport, and then, you know, eventually what comes around goes around, and then there might be a right time to say, oh yeah, now, you know, I've scratched your back, can you scratch mine? And you know, this is for you as a copywriter, as a freelancer. But again, these rules should apply to your prospects as well. You know, so they might not be doing things in those ways, but if you can help them to understand this kind of the way that things should be on social, if they're being very old school and salesy, then you're giving them strategic advice. You're giving them more value, and they'll really value you as a copywriter.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think we've got a meeting in 2 minutes, right?
I know. I think we've kind of covered everything, guys. But yeah, hopefully that's just given you a little insight into how you might approach social. And yeah, if you've got any questions, just write them in the comments below, and we can just, one of us, jump in and answer you. And
yeah, and I think it'd be good, I think, for us to just get some examples off the back of this. We can maybe get screenshots of what we're talking about, like good examples from B2C to B2B, and drop them in there. I think that might be, it's much easier to understand when you
Yeah,
look.
we didn't really talk about B2B examples, and there are some really good ones like Smartsheet are doing really kind of smashing it over the whole COVID thing. So yeah, we'll get some of those together for you as well.
Awesome, thanks Els.
Bye, thanks Con.